This video is for our ELC community and is in no relation to real life events.
Welcome to Inside the Beltway podcast as we talk about Secret Service overreach and a lot of federal department overreach in the Washington, D.C. area. I am your co host, Jim Wallace, along with my friend Davis Regent, as we get ready to talk about just this chaotic weekend, really, in Washington, D.C., as we've seen a lot of federal agents really just take over the place. It
It's
seems like it's been happening more recently than ever.
100% agree. It's wild for some reason.
It is, and we've heard of multiple incidents throughout this week of Secret Service agents overreaching Metropolitan Police, which have jurisdiction in Washington D.C. In policing Washington D.C., but Secret Service have taken it as it's their own thing and saying, "Hey, we're just going to police it for you, Metropolitan. We're not going to let you in on anything." That's pretty much what it's looking like. It's becoming, but um, I think. Do you think the same way too with that?
100%. It's crazy, and in a few moments we have our guest for the day that we're going to introduce. But the fact that we're not going to tell the local police department that we're on a motor vehicle accident scene and actually communicate with them over the radio to join us on said scene as federal agents, absurd, in my opinion. Not all right.
Yeah, so for context for people, the primary mission of the Secret Service is mandated by Congress with two distinct and critical national security missions, protecting the nation's leaders, safeguarding and the financial and critical infrastructure of the United States. So what that really means is they protect the president's children, the vice president's children. I believe the Speaker of the House, all the really high up, all the cabinet members. Uh, I believe the higher military, like the generals. And then they safeguard our financial and critical infrastructure. So, like the White House, the National Observatory, where the vice president lives, so that is their main priority as the Secret Service. But I feel like they have pushed too far into local law enforcement, which is not their primary mission. We feel like they've pushed the limit, if you will, into working not really working with local law enforcement, doing their own thing, getting in the way of local law enforcement. Um, Anything you'd like to add on to that too?
No, not really. I think now would be a good time for you to introduce our guest, though, Jim, so he can share his story of
I
how the Secret Service has overstepped their boundaries.
Yeah, so we are bringing in NCR Fox News correspondent Josh Ippinger. He was wrongfully arrested twice today by Secret Service. One at that car accident scene that we mentioned, which we got from independent sources of apparently saying that he was not getting out of public space or something like that. It was absurd. But we have him here. Josh, if you would like to tell us your story.
Yes, thank you, Jim and Davis, for having me. I'm very honored. And yes, me and my cameraman, Tom Hibbert, we were both wrongfully detained and arrested by Secret Service agents at the scene today at around 3 p.m. on Riverside in Fairfax. We were documenting a scene, a multi-vehicle collision, when a Secret Service agent, mind you, there's actually zero local police department on scene at the incident. They weren't even called, and Secret Service agents assumed scene command and they set up barricades, all that stuff. We were actually behind the barricades before we even had an interaction with the agents. We weren't trying to interview them or anything. They came up to us and they were essentially asking us to step back, and we took some steps back. We still got some photos and did our jobs and as follows. But the agent, he was not too happy what we were saying in terms of the Secret Service surge that has been very vigilant throughout the district, noticed by civilians and MPD. themselves. And so we were like, there's no way you guys are taking over the city and you're promoting an authoritarian like regime to take over the duties of the Metropolitan Police Department. And so they were unhappy with what we were saying, and evidently they just couldn't stand the truth, and so they arrested us on scene, and we were actually fined and booked, processed, mugshots all
Do
in
you
there.
do you think that the president has instructed the Secret Service to act in this matter? Do you think that she has pretty much made the Secret Service her weapon in going after civilians?
So I do, Jim. I do think I do think the president has a prominent role in the surge that we've been seeing. Most importantly, because the director of the Secret Service, there's
All right, we're here back here at the Inside the Beltway Political Podcast. We have had some technical difficulties, so we're again here with NCR Fox News correspondent Josh Pippinger, who has been wrongfully arrested by Secret Service. So here's one of the questions I have for you now, Josh. Welcome back. Um, do you believe that the president of the United States has really just overstepped her boundaries and has made it created the Secret Service to be a weapon against her own citizens?
Yes, Jim, I do think she has created well, she has weaponized essentially the United States Secret Service into becoming far more authoritarian than they were meant to be. The local police department is now being overlooked, and all of their scenes and enforcement regulations and essentially just procedures and the way they do their work is now being taken control of by these feds. And that's shown by the wrongful arrest of me and my cameraman and in fact, a officer actually questioned the agent on why we were being arrested, as we did nothing wrong. And of course, the agent felt that they were superior, and they just essentially told the officer to back off. And since there was no high-ranking MPD officers on scene, we were arrested and booked and processed. So, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a terrible day. Um, do you think that the obviously the MPD is mad about this? Do you think a lot of civilians really know about this, or do you think it's more of just in? Obviously, you know about this. You're a civilian, but obviously you know about this, and your colleague knows about this. But do you think the average citizen of DC knows about this takeover? I feel like they would have seen it. Obviously, they would have seen a lot more Secret Service presence in their city. But do you think just do you think they realize this?
So that's a great question, Jim. And I do think these civilians are aware of this Secret Service surge. In fact, the reason why our news station has been so aware and open about this is because of the civilians. We've been brought this has been brought to our attention by the residents of Washington, D.C., Arlington, and neighboring towns and cities. We don't know everything that goes on in the world, but even little things like a federal agent's presence during a traffic stop can just send in reports to our station. So yeah, I do think civilians know about this, and I do think they're just as frustrated as us. Of course, there's some that back Sidney Blair and they support that and stuff. And I'm not trying to denounce the Blair administration, but what I am here to speak about is the overreaching authorities that the Secret Service has been able to obtain in the past 30 to 60 days. And I'll also like to mention, and I know this might be a little off question here, but I also like to mention that crimes have not gone down by
Yeah,
by the Secret Service being more, eminent in the city, and we've seen a lot of events within the past 3 to 4 days that can prove so. So I
yeah,
do think civs are
I do
well,
agree
well,
with you. I've
yeah.
lived in DC for the last 20 some years, and it has gotten really bad under the last few weeks. A lot of lawlessness. There's a lot of people that just drive around that don't care. Then you see the Secret Service chasing people, and then whenever I see these chases on the news, you always see like the Secret Service are always in the lead, and it feels like they're always so aggressive. You got the local police who are there, but I feel like the local police just get passed up and thrown to the end of the pack and be like, The Secret Service, like, no, we're in charge, even though it wasn't started, the pursuit wasn't started by the Secret Service. It was started by MPD. I feel like that has happened a lot, really, um, in the last few weeks, really. Like, take it for example. Like, I think like what happens is, like, say like an MPD officer's on like on a traffic stop. They pull somebody over for some dumb infraction like running a stop sign or red light violation or speeding, and they either want to just run from the police because they want to run from the police, or they have a warrant or they're wanted or whatever they are. But then the MPD, they call for backup, and there's enough MPD officers on that are sufficient that they can handle that pursuit by themselves. But then it always seems like it ends up being Secret Service that always takes them into custody, and it's been a really big, I think it's a big issue, really, because then you also think of this: what is the point of the MPD if Secret Service is just gonna take over police? What is the point of MPD at this point? It seems like that they're really just a big, not as big as they used to be. If you feel that same way, they seem like they're being pushed behind the Secret Service.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like these local agencies are, again, being overlooked, but I feel like should definitely dive deeper into the pit policy and all of that stuff in terms of what you mentioned earlier about the pursuits. A lot of pursuits are actually initiated by the United States Secret Service in Washington D.C., especially around the areas like what's it called? Georgetown and
Yeah.
the Capitol, yeah, Capitol Hill, yeah. A lot of the areas are definitely more prominent in terms of crime, just specifically because these citizens are honestly scared of these agents. These agents, all types of rifles, including the Special Response Unit, Specialized Rifle Unit, Special Operations Division, all this stuff. These civil, these people are honestly terrified. And we can't call for MPD because they necessarily don't exist when things like this happen, when there's a police citizen interaction between the Secret Service and a random civilian on the road. And so I really think people should be aware of this. And I really think people should understand that these feds also have to respect you and also have to obey the rules.
Yeah.
And we actually have dived deeper into the enforcement operations when it comes to serious accidents like pursuits and standoffs and Code 5 stops and all that stuff. And we've spoken to a lot of MPD HICOM, and they too have not understood why they haven't been given priority and they haven't been given command over these priority scenes. So, yeah, it is a really big, difficult decision that we are dealing with here. And so we do advise everyone to comply, even if they're angry, but we do also
Yeah.
advise the
This
MPD
this
to
this whole
take some
episode is
action.
not to go against police, go against any law enforcement. We're just angry about the huge uptick of Secret Service in Washington D.C. And let me remind everybody, the viewers here, again, the Secret Service's primary mission is mandated by Congress for two distinct and critical national security missions. It's protecting the leaders, the national leaders of like the president, uh, the chief justice, the speaker of the House, the vice president, the cabinet members. That is their main priority, and safeguarding our financial and our critical infrastructure in America. That is their primary mission, not law enforcement. Well, they are law enforcement, but not city law enforcement, not that type of law enforcement of to where you're dealing with them in a city. But we have also something else that happened. This is really wasn't really well known. We got it from a body cam video of a from a MPD, was released by the MPD, of a Capitol police officer getting aggressive with MPD officers. So I think that, well, I'll explain the pretty much the body cam footage. So pretty much there was a vehicle accident. MPD officer rolled up to this vehicle accident, got out, checked, did all the right things, called for a backup unit. His supervisor, which was the backup unit, showed up, He pretty much just told the supervisor, "Hey, I want you to go interview this guy." He was giving him a rundown on what was going on. He told the supervisor to go interview somebody else, which I think is truthful because the first person on scene was there. He knows what was going on. The supervisor getting there didn't know what was going on and didn't know if anybody was interviewed. So the officer on scene told the supervisor to go interview um, this the subject. I'm not going to say suspect, but I'm going to say subject um, about this car accident. And they were on scene. I don't think they. It didn't sound like they ever called for Secret Service. Secret Service showed up out of the blue, showed up, not even being called. The Secret Service agent at the time on scene claimed that they were just blocks away from the White House. That was the reason for being there. And yes, this was just blocks away from the White House. It was on Freedom Avenue, um, but it was on Freedom Avenue. But it was close to the White House, but not really. It was near the Three Guys Distribution Center on Freedom Avenue, right in that area. It was close enough, but it really wasn't. So then the Secret Service was there, and then I think it was about 10 minutes into the recording of the body cam footage, um, that Capitol Police showed up. And then when Capitol Police showed up, the one officer, they started chasing the one suspect, arrested him, the one subject, well, now they're going to consider him a suspect at this point, um, arrested him and saying that he was wanted for something. And then the one Capitol Police officer got into the supervisor's face, the MPD supervisor's face, and started saying that you need to control your scene, you need to take command of your scene, and just being real aggressive with this MPD supervisor. And mind you, the MPD had no idea that this guy was so-called wanted. Not so-called wanted, but just wanted. They weren't told. They weren't aware of this. They were just on scene taking care of a motor vehicle accident. Then Capitol Police just rolls up and just starts barking orders um, at the MPD officers. And then a scuffle between MPD officers. The supervisor got into a scuffle, just arguing with the Capitol Police officer. The body cam that I'm talking about. That police officer then started going in and started yelling at the Capitol Police officer, saying that he just started coming here and just started barking orders. He has no clue what was going on. Um, it, that's just one of many incidents of Capitol Police and federal police officers in general being real aggressive. Was there anything else you would like to add on? Obviously, you probably did not know about that one. I just brought that up out of the blue.
I
Um,
certainly didn't know.
but there's a story for you. That is a true story. I saw that and
Well,
I was
we
like,
will
that made me angry.
we will certainly be we'd be deep diving into that one very soon. Thank you. I actually wrote that down.
Yeah.
Um, but there is one thing else I'd like to address before I, go about my day at the station. I've seen a large number of protests and not even domestic protesters, but like foreign protesters. For example, yesterday during Sidney Blair's speech at well, I don't even know if you could call it a speech, and what didn't even get that far before a sniper actually went off. And by the way, terrible incident. I do not condone that kind of behavior, and I received word from an agent that the sniper was actually a British national. So we've seen a significant increase, and the Sidney Blair administration would denounce this, but we've seen a significant increase in violent crimes throughout the district, with federal agencies being more prevalent in the area. So I just want to just make it be known. I feel like local police should be allowed to do their jobs in this because obviously they are not the problem. The feds are the problem.
Yeah.
If feds stick to their duties and guard the White House gates like they're instructed to, and when the president's around town, get them to and from the White House, that's fine. They do all that, and I'm not against Secret Service. I think they do a great job, and I think they're just as important as local police officers. When they overstep and when they try to overtake the city and the city's local enforcement, the city and local enforcement that people actually like to communicate with and feel safe around, then it becomes a big problem. So I do think that uh, we need to really we need to really double check if the Secret Service is what we really want inside of our district and inside of our nation's capital, essentially. And if we really want this big and beautiful city that Sydney Blair is really eminent on producing, then we really need to look into the factors that's making the city unsafe, and we should address those at hand.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been really, with the Secret Service, there's really been no oversight of this. There's been no committees formed. There's been no testifying in front of Congress. There's been none of this. They've just been allowed to be rampant throughout our city. And like you said about protests, we do have somebody that is going to be joining us later. They are staging a protest. We here at the Inside the Beltway, we believe in talking to both sides of the political spectrum. Now, you're obviously a news reporter, so you're kind of in the middle of all of this. You're in the middle of that spectrum. You're covering the left. You're covering the
Well,
right.
yeah, we try to be
You
independent,
try to
but
be independent,
some
yes,
would
and
say we're more conservative.
totally understandable. But we also hear we also listen to the right. We also listen to the left. This lady, I think she's a little bit more left leaning, um, but she brought some good points to me when we were talking before we got on this show. Uh, she's saying that she doesn't feel safe being in the city, and I kind of feel the same way. Not feeling safe of being in the city, um, and just doesn't feel safe around federal agents. But thank you, Josh Pippinger. Thank you very much for your input, and thank you for your opinion, and thank you for joining us here today. Let's bring in um, our next person we're going to
Thank
interview.
you for having me.
Well, you're quite welcome. You can join back at any point in time. Just for you listeners out there, you're probably wondering what happened to my co-host. Well, he's having technical difficulties, so he'll be probably back here in a little bit. But we're going to go to another interview now. We're going to talk to Karen McFarlane. She is she is an advocate with the Pink Lives Matter movement, and she says that this federal administration has gone too far out of line. Karen, welcome to the podcast. Thank you. Thank you for having me. So, I believe that the Blair administration has gotten so far out of out of line. I mean, he just controls everything now. Do you think that what do you think of the Secret Service? What do you think that they've overstepped their boundaries? Absolutely. I think curbing our local police is the absolute worst thing a police force could do. It's just terrible. It's so bad what is going on. Crime rate has gone up, and it has gotten way worse than ever before. So you're part of this movement. So you're creating a protest with this. Yes, we are creating a protest the next session, whatever that is, in front of the White House. We'll have protesters there. We are protesting the overreach of federal agents in our capital, and we believe it is so wrong. It is obviously so wrong. All right, well, thank you very much, Karen, for joining us. That will do it for Inside the Beltway Political Podcast. You've heard a lot here today. We've talked about a lot of overreach from the federal government, and it has obviously gone way too far. I'm your host, Jim Wallace. My co-host is Davis Regiman, and we were joined by Josh Pippinger and Karen McFarlane. Thank you for watching, and have a great rest of your night.